Hi, I'm Josh Gonzalez, and welcome to Meld. This is a podcast where I have in-depth conversations with some of the brightest people in the known universe. My aim is to spark deep conversations around interesting topics so we can find the tools, tactics, and philosophies that we can all use in our daily and creative lives. In this episode, I sat down with Brent Stirling. Brent currently runs social media performance marketing at Shopify. He's experienced in all forms of paid and organic social, as well as building multi-channel strategy for a number of industries, including software as a service, tech startups, direct-to-consumer brands, hospitality, and even politics. In this episode, we get into all things social media marketing, from the organic side to paid social media tactics, and this is all from pretty much a high level, just a kind of an intro. So that being said, if you are a marketer yourself, you might find some of the tools and tactics and some of the things we talk about a little bit beginner, but I think you'll still enjoy Brent's stories about his experience working at Shopify. He started a social media agency and also working at Toronto's largest tech accelerator. So he has lots of experience, lots of really good stories. And since this episode does take place during the COVID-19 pandemic, we do talk about his work experience working from home. As you may or may not know, Shopify is one of the biggest companies in Canada to put in place a permanent work from home scenario. So we do talk about some of his overall experience working from home with his wife and a young kid and how he's making that work in his daily work schedule. And there's lots of incredible stories here. Brent shares a lot of information. So if you do want to dig deeper or look up some of the things we talk about, all of the show notes for this episode are posted on my website if you want to dig deeper. So you can go into the link in the description of this podcast, or you can go directly to joshgonsalves.com. That's JoshGonsalves.com. And you can also reach out to me and Brent on Twitter. You can talk about anything mentioned in this episode, or if you just want to hit one of us up, you can find both of our social media handles in the description of this podcast. And again, at the show notes at joshgonsalves.com. So let's get right into it. I'm Josh Gonzalez, and this is Meld with Brent Stirling. Okay, well, Brent, thanks so much for coming on Meld. We get to talk all things social. You can enlighten me and all the listeners on all things social, because I know your paid and organic social game is strong, even though you don't think so.
If you think you're good, then you're not, right? Like that's the thing. As soon as you start to realize, like, oh, I barely know anything, then that's when you're like, I'm probably not bad at this. But don't tell yourself that in your head. You always have to feel like you're behind.
Exactly. That's how you start off. Cool, man. So I guess for anyone listening who doesn't know you, tell us a little about yourself. I know about you, but I want people to understand what you do, who you are, just everything, man. Just give us it all.
My day job is at Shopify. I'm on the performance marketing team, and myself and another person specifically focused on acquisition. If you've ever seen a Shopify ad on a social media channel, I have put it there.
Which is crazy because it's literally global, we can't talk about specifics, but maybe you can talk a little bit about the plan right now and the phase that you're in, because I'm sure by now everyone's heard of Shopify, which might not have been the case 5 years ago.
I mean, I think that if you're in Canada, you've probably heard of Shopify.
Definitely.
Elsewhere, at least hearing the word Shopify. I mean, I think for the first year, my mom thought I worked at Spotify. And that's fine. But I think that we're, especially now during unprecedented times. I keep doing air quotes like somebody can see me, and I realize
maybe the video will go up eventually.
But as everybody's kind of going online more and more to do stuff. I mean, I think that there was some graph that was circulating around about online commerce or e-commerce or whatever. Is that I don't need to get into the semantics of that. Let's just say e-com and then we'll be good. But that like in a 3-month period, it did like, it was kind of moving along at a steady clip, but in 3 months, it kind of jumped like 10% or something like that. Just all of a sudden, everybody that was never like, oh, I'm never going to sell online is like, oh, I guess I'm selling online now. But like, that's, well, it's good. It's good for, it's not good. The whole world in general is not good. But like people transitioning to online, like I think I don't know how deep you want to get into this, but I think that like it is kind of forcing those like holdouts that were like that had terrible online experiences, or they just had like a website. And I mean, it makes me think of like freelance clients that I had back in the day where I was just like, no, you got to have like a website. And they were just like, why? I'm like, well, because like you need it, and you need social to be able to like get in front of people and like provide a solid experience online. And this is kind of like clicked people over to it. There's one guy that he used to work at Shoelace, and he tweets about it all the time. His parents have like sorry, this is a random aside, but his parents have. He grew up selling vegetables in the mountains in France, and that's where his parents are. And they used to go to like farmers markets every weekend. And his parents are getting older. And during this, he finally convinced them to, and he's like a digital growth guy, which is kind of crazy because it would drive you insane, right? If your parents are like, no, I'm not doing anything online. And so he finally transitioned them to like online, and now they actually like make more money. And it's less work for them because they don't have to like load up trucks with vegetables and drive to like a market and set everything up and then try and sell their stuff and then take everything that they didn't sell home. Instead, they're like doing baskets where they're like sending it to people, and they have like online orders coming in, and they've just kind of decided now. And he has like a bunch of threads about it. His name's Florent Schmal. I'm probably.
You can send me the link. I'll put the link in the description.
I'm sorry, Flo, if you ever listen to this. But like it's just really interesting, right? Where people that were kind of resistant to this, like taking a business online, are kind of like realizing, like, oh, this can be a sustainable business model that is actually like scalable and far more scalable and less work.
That's the key too, the less work. But honestly, even that aside, with like the sort of farmers market, I'm thinking like one of the biggest opportunities of like the next 5 to 10 years might actually be vertical farming, urban farming in the cities, in these unused spaces, and then selling them online, like direct to consumer, or team up with these, was it Voila by Sobeys and like grocery gateways, and you're just like supplying them, and it's distributed, and it's much healthier because it's like in the city.
Interesting to see what happens with like office spaces in general.
Yeah, Shopify was one of the first big companies to announce like indefinite work from home. So yeah, I want you to kind of talk about it, because obviously you have a lot more insight than even what people have seen on the news and whatnot. So I'd love to hear sort of that transition and everything that happened there.
I can't remember exactly. Probably end of March, early April, maybe later than that. Maybe it was late April. They came out with like digital by default. Is what they were calling it. And, they were kind of like, look, we're going digital by default. We're going to figure out what it looks like. We don't know for sure. Like, we're letting everybody know early. So like, start to think about that. And it was more like, because I think a lot of people initially started with like, well, like I'll work from my couch. And like, after a month or two of working straight from your couch, you're just like, oh, this is rough. And instead, I think it was kind of like incentivizing everybody to like, hey, if you have like terrible internet, go out and probably like sort that out. And same with like, if you're working from a couch, maybe get a chair, like that you could sit in.
Get a desk. Don't be hunched over. Don't destroy your back.
Exactly.
Yeah. So did they give you like some kind of stipend or any kind of like structure around that? Any kind of cash to like set up your space?
Mid-March or whatever, where they were just like, we're not going back into the office. Here's like $1,000 for everybody to go and buy what you need to be able to like get through this. And then I think it was like a month and a half later where they were like, okay, now you're working from home. And we have perks and stuff that you can utilize. I think there are like 5,000 or 6,000 employees. Like what?
No, but it is crazy that this happened like how long after they just moved into the new office? Like they just got that new office.
They're building one in Toronto and they're building one in Ottawa. And like, I'm really, it's got to be interesting to be on the team that's sorting out like, well, what do we do with these offices? And I believe that, don't quote me. Well, I mean, yeah, like people will hear it, but I don't know because they're not like calling me and they're like, hey, you know who we should tell about our office plans? The guy running our paid social. Like nobody's
needs to know.
Yeah, nobody's just like shoot me a Slack message like, hey, just so you know. But
we got a DM Brent.
Yeah, like, well, wait. Toby's about to make a decision. Should we check with Brent? But like it will be interesting to see because I think we're going to keep some because there are like some jobs that require like collaboration. But what those offices look like, and I think that this is like one of those like overall questions of like what is like Facebook and Twitter and like what are they going to do with these spaces kind of moving forward.
Yeah, like Facebook has an entire like city. They have like a whole little town going on. Like it's crazy.
I was there last year. I went down for a thing. It's Disneyland, but there are no rides and everything is free. And literally though, it looks like a Disneyland facade because the person that designed Disneyland designed Facebook.
I didn't know that. That's cool. I knew that Frank Gehry designed like the main building.
Like the craziest place I've ever been in that they have like, you just Google what they have there.
And then while you're at it, Google as well.
Yeah,
Google
like,
Googleplex.
Like, they're just like coffee shops and like, it looks like a little town. Well, not a little town, like a big town.
It's a big town. Yeah.
And they have like Ubers that drive around, like just like Facebook Ubers, like not actually Uber, but like you just like, you're at a building and you pick up a phone and then a car shows up to drive you to another building. And you're like,
for our meeting. Yeah, it's crazy.
What is happening? So
I wonder what they're going to do.
I don't know. Like, I mean, it's a beautiful space and it's gigantic, but at the same time, like, how do you what do you do with that? Is it that everybody that can work remote works remote and then you space everything out? And then how do you create like collaborative spaces? And like, maybe it becomes more of a gathering place. Like,
event, because they still do those events and conferences, right? So yeah, it's weird. But also like there was like these conflicting things where at first it's like, yeah, we're going to save so much money by distributing our team, work from home. Like you have to pay for them. But then they realize, wait, they will probably be better off in the office, better for collaboration, better for certain projects. But how about for you guys? Like, have you guys found that like working remotely has been okay? I mean, for what you're doing, like purely digital stuff, it must be okay. But I'd love to hear how that's gone.
The job is the same. And I think that everybody's kind of adjusting to like, well, how many meetings do you need? Because if you want to talk to anybody, then you got to book something or like hop on a Google Meet. I'd be interested to see overall like where productivity is at. I mean, it's it's not the same for me because I have a 4-year-old running around all the time.
Yeah. How do you feel like productivity wise?
No. If you've heard the rant from any parent during this time that is working from home, you've heard the rant that I'm like about to go in. Like I'm at like 30 to 40%, maybe if I'm lucky. Right. And then you decide at night, are you like, okay, so like right now my son is asleep. Dope. Am I going to work until midnight so that I can catch up? But then in the morning feel terrible and like feel burnt and then have to parent and try and work. Or you like go to sleep, get a decent night's rest, wake up and you can parent, but you're only able to like do it at a 40% kind of clip because otherwise like he's 4 and we're probably melting his brain with screens. Like my works full time and she's in digital stuff too. And she has she's far more successful than I am. And like, sometimes you got to get stuff done. And then you're like, yeah, you can watch an hour of Paw Patrol, and you're like, okay, here we go. And then you just get into working. And then all of a sudden you look up and you realize like, oh, it's been like 5 hours. Has he been watching Paw Patrol for 5 hours? Like, oh no, that can't be good. That's never good at 4. But like here we are. And like, you're just kind of, sometimes you just got to write it off and you're like, it can't break him that much, but like, we'll figure it out when he's like 25 and I'll see like, are you serial killer-ish or are you totally fine? And I don't know, like, who knows?
Becomes a cartoonist. Who knows, man? Who knows how this, yeah, it's crazy.
It's trying to find different. So like one, the people that have young kids are in a difficult situation. So I will say like my team has picked up a lot of the slack. Like, hey, I'll like jump on that for you and like write this brief or whatever. And then you can just like read it. And I'm like, that is amazing.
That's great.
My mom got into like Google Meet and now he has a meeting with grandma, and because he knows what meetings are now, like he's like, oh, you're in a meeting. And like she like reads him books and like they play trucks and it's dope because we just like put him in the playroom and then you're like, cool, I'm gonna do work. So that's super helpful. But at the same time, my mom's got to just be bored out of her mind. How do you talk to a 4-year-old for like 2 hours? Sometimes it's just like 3 hours. And I walk in and I'm like, are you still on a call with grandma? And he's like, yeah. And my mom's just there like, hey.
I love that.
I'm always saying like, you don't have to be here this long. She's like, I'm just sitting in my garden and playing with him. And I'm like, okay.
That's awesome. So like I could see how that would be so tough. Like that's like it's there's 2 jobs at once, right? Because like parenting, that's a full-time job.
At least if you don't want to break them.
Exactly, and it's also not like it's not a pandemic, and he can just go to school or go to daycare or something, and he can work from home. That's not the case at all. Like it's totally different situation.
Like run him or any like even it's crazy. Imagine being like 4 and seeing a park, and now he doesn't even like react to it. He's just like, yeah, we can't go there. And you're like,
he just knows his mind by default.
Knows. Like, he's like, And even now, like people are going back to it, and I'm kind of like, I'm gonna chill in stage 2 for a little bit.
Yeah,
and like, so he's like, kids are playing. Can I go play? And I'm like, no.
Okay, does he understand? Because that's hard. That's a hard thing to say to kids. That we're in a pandemic, and it's like technically, like the law says you can go, but like, should you? Like, you're making that decision to stay safe. You know,
understanding of what the coronavirus is. He's not a fan of it. But he's always like, when the coronavirus is over, we can go and play on the park. And I'm like, yeah, you totally can. Like then,
yeah.
It's definitely his birthday was just like a couple of days ago. And, like COVID guilt kicked in and I bought him like a dune buggy power wheel because I was
That's
just
sick.
Like, yeah, you need this. So like, he's that kid now, which I feel like my wife and I were talking about it where we were like, neither of us, you can tell every adult when you're driving down the street with his like little power wheel thing, every adult that wanted one growing up that never had one, because that's most people, right? If you know somebody that was like, I had a power wheel, you're like, I don't know about you then. And now we're making that kid. And most other kids are like, oh, that's cool. But like the adults are all like, what is that thing?
It's like the Tesla for kids, for
sure.
Yes. It's amazing. So have you found any I mean, again, it's been hard and I'm sure you found some ways to cope. So like, I mean, for any parents out there, do you have any advice, like anything, any little tips, tricks that you have found that kind of work? That you're like, this is better than it was before at the beginning.
Like, it's not good. It's not pretty. Like we, at one point tried like a schedule and we were like, we're only going to let him watch TV for 30 minutes. And like, we're going to do all these other things. But then like you can't, I used to teach and you can't lesson plan then actually execute on those lessons on top of that is like pretty demanding as it is. So it's more about like, just is what it is. We're gonna get through it. I mean, we're gonna send him to school in September if everything's cool. But if it isn't,
you got to make that call. You got to make that call when you get there. He'll be okay.
There's no month or 2 months or even a year of school. Like maybe when you're like in grade 11 or something, like then it matters.
Even then, I don't know.
I don't know. Is it really like the socialization part is like really, really hard where you just like want him to be able to hang out with people. But other than like the school stuff, he'll figure it out. There's no adult that I know that went through like elementary school and like doesn't know how to read or write or like it's fine.
Yeah. The basics. Just all you got to do is show him how to run Facebook ads and set up a Shopify store and you're good. He's good. I think I remember you tweeting something like that. Like, I got to make sure as soon as my kid's of age, like I'm just going to teach him, make a Shopify store.
It's more like entrepreneurship than anything else, right? Like,
yeah.
A Shopify store does not mean that that's the only way to be an entrepreneur or anything like that. But like, it's an avenue. It's an avenue to like learn about things. You learn way more trying to like run your own thing and figure stuff out. People learn how to learn. And then after that, you use that to learn the actual things that you need to know. Like I have a history degree. My wife has a history degree and like neither of us do anything with history. Like what? Like the only way that I spin it in a job interview is like, I'm like, well, I studied some like propaganda and that's like the beginnings of marketing. And that's why I'm a good marketer now.
The history of marketing with propaganda. It's true though. I mean, yeah, it is.
You can kind of look at it and be like, oh, this influenced a lot of people.
Totally. So how did you get into social media? Because you did your own business and then DMZ is how we met when you're doing social there. So how did you get into this all?
I graduated from university, moved to Japan, and I taught high school English there for 4 years. Teaching in Japan is kind of like university 2.0, where like you have more money and it's not the hardest thing to do. And you like live in Japan where it's, you know, they have like all you can drinks for $20 for 4 hours. And you're like, what? So
just so much Jim Beam. It's just all Jim Beam.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. So like we lived there for a while. I kind of got into, that was when like Facebook was kind of.
Yeah. So what year would that have been?
I graduated from university in 2006. Like I moved to Japan in 2006 and I moved back in 2010. So like social was starting to become more of a thing. And I was using it at the time to like build community there. But that was just because I like wanted to go and party with people. And I was like, yo, we need like a Facebook group and we need forums and like all these like digital pieces. And then I started like, my camera was terrible. So I started taking video instead of pictures. And then I started to like learn how to do video editing because I was like, oh, these are great for like my trips and I'll like cut them together. And like, then, you know, it just like progressed because I had spare time because I was pretty good at English. So it's not like I needed to like study up. Like, I wasn't like, oh, I don't know how to teach this subject. It was just like, yeah, English, cool.
Yeah, we take it for granted. It's pretty funny. Yeah,
a little bit, but like we had like you were an assistant teacher to a Japanese English teacher, so it was like it wasn't super hard. So I had a lot of like time to do other things, and then I came back, and we figured, yeah, we've lived abroad and we have history degrees, we'll get jobs. No, not at all. So like I took a job selling cell phones while we were signing up for cell phones. Like somebody was like, do you need a job? And I was like, I do. And I sold cell phones for 2 years, 29 years old, being like, yeah, okay. Now I work in a mall selling cell phones. So that was a little bit of a fall from grace. But at the same, so then I started to get into like digital stuff and like was dealing with I lived in Ottawa at the time. Cause my in-laws gave my wife wasn't my wife at the time, but they gave us a better deal than my parents did when we were moving back. They were like, you can use our cars and you could stay here forever. And we were like, dope, we're moving to Ottawa. So sold cell phones. I'm making this longer than it needs to be. But where I lived in Japan was in Fukushima. The earthquake happened in 2011 in Fukushima. So at the time, like a lot of the people that I knew were still there and you're your like nuclear Japanese isn't dope.
Man, I forget how like recent that was. Like for me, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like history. Like no, that was like recent.
It's not a long amount of time. So I got really into that, and I really into like finding out what was going on and using social to like let my friends know what was happening. Because like it was kind of all over the show. So I started like writing blogs and giving them updates, and then like it kind of snowballed into a thing where there was like PR around it. And I had been involved with the Japanese embassy a little bit. And then there was a program where you could apply to go back and visit the region if you had been in the program that I was part of going to Japan, which is the JET program. So I applied and I got it, and then they sent me back. So then that became like a thing. And I was like, wow, like and all I learned through that was like, there's a lot you can do with social that's not like, hey, I'm going to the mall. And then at the same time, a buddy of mine opened a bar. And I was like, what are you doing on the internet? And he was like, what do you mean we're going to open the doors to the bar and people are going to show up? And I was like, no. And my wife went back to school for web dev stuff. So she started teaching me like, hey, this is how you can like build a website. So I built their website, then I built their social, then they started to like make money from it. And then my buddy said to me like, I think you could probably charge people for this. And I was like, do you think so? And he was like, I'll pay you. And I was like, cool. So then I made my own company after that because it was easier than just being like, hi, I'm Brent, the social media guy.
Yeah, back then that wasn't a thing. Like that just was not a thing that people hired for.
Yeah, I had like business cards and I was like, yeah, my team and I will manage your social media, which means just like me after my shift at the mall selling cell phones. Like, and then I like, you pirate Photoshop, and then I got into design, and then I just started like reading more and learning all the things. And that kind of like transitioned into doing a bunch of stuff in the tech. We eventually moved to Toronto because both of us, my wife graduated from her like post-grad thing for e-com, or not e-com. She works in e-com now, for like web dev stuff. We moved to Toronto because that's where the tech jobs were, which is ironic given that I work for Shopify, which is based out of Ottawa now.
Full circle, full circle right there.
Started doing like startup things, like Hacker Nest. I was like an organizer of that for a couple of years. And then eventually like, I worked up like a resume of like, hey, I've worked with like all these startups and all these companies, and I've run these hackathons. And then I took a job at the DMZ, and I was there for a couple of years. So, and then running the DMZ stuff. And through that, then I met way more people. Like the DMZ was as much
it's
as
just
like
a hub. It's just a hub for like innovation, startups.
Any of those like incubators, right, is a really good way to just go out and meet people. Like the startups that jump between incubators, they know what's up, right? Go and get free space in a spot that is teeming with other startups. And then like, and I'm not saying like the DMZ is the best, because it's not like they're all decent, right? Like
they're technically number one.
Yeah.
They're technically the best. Yeah, marketing.
Yeah. We don't need to go down that path.
No,
but like, you just meet a lot of people, and I got really involved with a lot of things. And then like I did Navdeep Baines's election campaign in 2015. And he's the Minister of Economic Development and Innovation. And like, I just started to like pad more portfolio. And then eventually I had to apply through a Snapchat story.
Is that how you applied?
The cover letter was a Snapchat story. I brought it up. I'm going to tweet it out in a couple of days because it's like coming up to the time that I had to do it. And I found out afterwards they used it as like a growth hack to grow their Snapchat following because it got covered everywhere, right? Everybody was like, Shopify is hiring through Snapchat.
So and like, yeah, download Snapchat, follow them, friend them, whatever it is.
And we're like, yeah, it worked. And I was like, man,
that's actually pretty good growth hacking.
It is. It was really smart. But that means that I had to shoot a whole Snapchat story. And then I was on the brand and comms team there.
Dude, I remember Snapchat's kind of past its prime now, but I remember you were the one that told me to make the first Toronto fucking geofilter. Remember that?
I do remember that.
Yeah, that was the first Toronto geofilter. That was like before it was open to the public. You had to like apply to like be a designer. That was awesome. Yeah, dude.
Remember that was a big deal? Like
that was actually a big deal.
It was. We all thought that was amazing. We were like, whoa!
The geo filter. Now it's like AR effects, face filters. Yeah. Anyone can make crazy stuff. But like that's how much it's evolved in like what, 3 to 4 years? Like it's insane.
And that's so then I joined as like a social specialist on the brand and comm side. So more of like the organic community stuff. And then
wait, so was that the first thing you did at Shopify, or is it all organic and brand community stuff?
Yeah. So like, well, it was like we ran Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, like all the organic side of those. What else am I missing? I should know more off the top of my head.
I guess Snapchat too would have been at the time.
Yeah, Snapchat was hard though, because you needed like a host. And we eventually had one. Like that's at the DMZ, I ran the Snapchat, but that was like, it was me every day. You make a mini movie. Like Snapchat is not an easy platform to just hop on and be like, yeah, we're here now.
Yeah, it's like more media than especially with TikTok now. I think like social media is moving more on the media side rather than social side, right? It's like content. It's not just like me posting my brunch or whatever. That's probably part of it, but it definitely is like media. Like you're saying, there's a media personality. There's like a host with podcasts that's eventually become social content. Like it's media. Like it's just like distributed new media.
Everything has to be. It doesn't have to be polished. I was about to say it has to be polished. I think like on TikTok, maybe it has to like look pretty good if you want it to go. Right. But like, especially for the ad stuff that I do, it's weird because you see something you think isn't going to work at all smashes. And it'll be like something that I just like Photoshop and I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to test this. And I like put it in and then it kills. And I'm like, what? And then like a thing that you spend like so much time on and like videos that are like deep and like really well shot and edited and color corrected and stuff. And you toss that in and just it dies. And you're like, whoa, what's happening right now?
It's so weird. I guess, so how do you measure that? And how do you figure out, okay, so this is working, even if you didn't think it was? How do you like jot that down? How do you log that? And how do you keep like doubling down on that?
I mean, I think when you're on a branding comm side, it gets really easy. Like the KPIs to be able to measure are really easy. Are not easy. Raising brand awareness is not easy, but measuring brand awareness or overall reach or anything like that, like, yeah, you can just go out. Oh, we hit 1 million people. That means like 1 million people watched 3 seconds of this video. Cool. But like, what does that do? So like, that's kind of where I started, where it was like, all right, yeah, let's get people to view videos and like, let's make them share it. And even I think on the organic side, if you're looking at your overall reach, that makes sense. If you're not paying for it, right? Like try and figure out how many of your actual followers you're hitting and then like try and hit more of them. Because if you can hit more, then there's more likelihood to share, and a share is the best thing you could possibly look for. So like you need
literally word of mouth. That's exactly what you want.
Well, yeah, you need to create content that provides value. Like from an organic side, you always need to create content that provides value, right? Like that's just bar none. You need to create content that provides value and then content that people can identify with, or in some way they see a piece of themselves so that they then share it. So it's not only are you like teaching somebody or like providing value in some way, shape, or form, it's the like, will this person share this? Because people will share things based off of like, if they think it reflects their identity. Right? Like that's at least what I've found thus far is like, if you can tap into somebody that's, even if they're like virtue signaling, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the shit people to share. But like, if somebody wants to be seen as whatever and sharing your content allows them to be seen that way, that's the easiest way to scale organically without having to buy followers or anything else. Like the followers come after that, right? If you can create the content that's valuable, followers come after that. And then you have more people that you could potentially reach, and you try and increase that reach overall. And you measure it on a per post basis, because otherwise you get lost in like we'll just post every 5 minutes and that way we'll hit more people. And like every algorithm will just pound you for that.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much you have to take into account. Like it seems like it's like equal like science as it is like creative. Like there's so many like technologically, I mean, like, well, with the algorithms, one thing, but then there's also like human nature you need to account for as well. I feel like there's so many layers to it.
Like if you're in social now, you can't just be you can be a content creator, but you need to pair that with somebody that's going to be able to analyze what's happening and like run the data. And I mean, when I first at Shopify, I had like this massive spreadsheet that I would go in and pull numbers weekly from every single channel that we had. And then it would calculate like average number of shares per post, average number of likes per post. And it would like give me those averages. And then it would compare them to the previous quarter and compare them to the previous week so that we could see week over week growth and we could see quarter over quarter growth. It was gigantic. It was bananas.
That's crazy. So do you have it automated now?
Well,
you
have like a system. Well, yeah. So it's different. Like at the time, right? There wasn't the brand social team was pretty big, and we had like video creators and stuff like that. But we didn't have a ton of data. Like we didn't have a ton of data support. But then they hired somebody, and he came in and was like, "What are you doing with these?" Like a data scientist was like, "What are you doing with these crazy spreadsheets that you built?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know, like SQL or like any of those things." So like how
so they built it in house.
Yes. Like
that's sick.
Yeah. So like now it got automated, which was better.
Okay. Yeah.
But then I moved over to the growth team where I'm spending the money. So there's a little bit of there's more data. There's more data support. I have like dope data scientists that I'm just like, hey, I need a dashboard that can show me like this, this, and this. And then they just like, it's magic. And then
they literally build dashboards.
Yeah. Like, I mean, and they're doing more than that, right? They're not just
for sure.
Yeah. Like we bring them in when we're going to run experiments. We literally, the like data scientist that supports our team is like my best friend. I don't do anything without her signing off on it. I'm like, yo, does this make sense to you? And she's like, yes. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that then.
So are you more of like the creative side now of that?
Well, no. So like the KPIs change when you're on a growth team because I'm responsible for like merchant ads. So actually getting people to sign up. So the KPIs on a growth side are very different, especially for something like Shopify, which is like a SaaS product. Get into that. Get in that because it's totally different than like if you're doing ads for like a product or something. D2C paid social or growth or whatever you want to call it is a little bit different than like a SaaS product because we have a 14-day free trial. So you can't really optimize towards the end of that 14-day free trial because most of the algorithms don't have a feedback loop that can extend to 14 days, right? If you start a store today, like even the Facebook algorithm needs a feedback loop within 7 days. So you can't optimize towards that. And then at the same time, like it's not like a one-time purchase, right? I'm not trying to get you to buy, and in no way, shape, or form am I like belittling D2C marketers because like they have a whole other like realm that is not like looking at ROAS and like doing like how to 4x your ROAS versus 3x your, and I'm just and I'm looking at like my cost per lead, my cost per customer, and I'm trying to like make those numbers go down, but at the same time reach as many people as I possibly can. I'm getting you to not just SaaS, but Shopify specifically is like you become a lead, great, right? You like put in your email and you start your store, cool. Except like that doesn't mean anything for. Like it does. It shows intent.
But use that as a tag almost. Like, okay, they've done this thing. They've done step one.
Yeah. But what I need from you is I need you to be successful, become a customer, but I need you to be good at it. Like, and by I mean like I'm trying to get you to a point where you're actually good at it. Right. Like that's the difficult thing is like, it's not just like, hey, start a store, because if you throw somebody in that knows nothing about e-com or nothing about online, or if you don't know anything and you just pop into the back of a Shopify store, it looks crazy. because you don't know what you're looking at. Like, you're just like, what is all of this? Because it's the back end of Shopify is set up as your back office. It manages your inventory and your products and like all of the things. And online store is just a piece. It's just a piece of what it is. So like when you log in and it just hits you and you're like, what am I looking at? And like, that's the difficult, like, that's what I enjoy about marketing in Shopify is like, or marketing a product like Shopify in general, is that it's not a straight shot. There's no like, oh, they bought sunglasses, cool, done. Like, that's not the thing, right? I need you to, by the time you hit your admin, I need you to know what that looks like, be ready for it, understand what you're going to do, understand the pieces that you need in order to set that up, to then be successful, to then stay on the platform. And like, I don't succeed. And I mean, I think just in general, in Shopify in general is under the guise of like, we don't succeed unless the people that are on our platform are succeeding, which makes it a super easy place to work for, because you're just like, oh, cool. We're all going to work together to like make everyone successful. Dope. That sounds great. Like, I get, who's not behind that mission statement, right? It's just, and like, our mission statement is like, make commerce better for everyone. But that's the point, right?
Exactly.
It's just like, okay, yeah, I'll sign up for that. Lots of people want to work at Shopify all the time. And I have this discussion with them where they're just like, I want to work there because it sounds cool. And like, that's great. But like, you got to understand the product that you're building, working on, and a lot of people, even myself included, like, I kind of, I was like, e-commerce, yeah, like, that's great. And then like, I started a store, and then I was like, oh, fuck, this is going to be a hard job.
Do they make everyone start a Shopify store when you sign up, or once you start there?
There's an onboarding where you do it in a group, but I had a person start on my team in March, and like, literally she came out of onboarding, and then the first day I was like, cool, build a store. And she was like, but I just built a store in onboarding. And I was like, no, you did that with like 5 people in 2 hours. You get 3 days. And at the end of 3 days, I want to be able to buy something from your store. And like, that's how you get like product knowledge. Yeah. I guess that's my like overall tip for marketing, is that if you don't actually fully understand your product, you're fucked. Like, yeah. And you see it all the time where people are like, well, why don't you market it this way? And you're like, because that doesn't work, and that's not how the product works. And then you're setting people up to fail, right? And you can go out, and I could run ads all day that say things like, become a millionaire, and just like money bag. And like, that's not how it works.
I feel like there's a secondary market of people marketing courses for Shopify. That's a whole other thing.
Dude, yes.
Oh, but like, my God.
Anybody that's telling you like, oh yeah, it's so easy to make $1 million. Absolutely not. Like, it is, even when I started my first store that I started with a buddy of mine, the guy that owned the very first restaurant that I ran social for. He was like, man, we got to start a Shopify store now that you work there. He was like, vegan, organic deodorant. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? But like, we did it, right? So like, we found a manufacturer. We like went out, we like built the branding. Like, we paid like a legit designer to like do all the things. And like, I was like, I'm going to smash this. Like, I understand everything. And like, here we go. And like, we had dope photos, all the things. I didn't know much about organic vegan deodorant, despite my hipsterisms. I was still like, what? This can't be hard. And like, I didn't really do like the research on that, like the audience or how to reach them or anything. But I was like, I do this for a living. It's going to be easy. And I dropped like $1,000 on Facebook ads over a weekend and just lit it on fire. Like, not a single sale at all. And I was like, oh, God damn. Like, you can get, and I know, like, I knew what I was doing. But
right. And you're someone who kind of knows what they're doing. So there's a lot of people going in who have no idea.
Ads, we'll do that and it's going to be easy. But like, I made mistakes because I didn't warm up my pixel enough. There weren't enough conversions in it. It wasn't past that. Like, so Facebook didn't know what it was optimizing towards. because there weren't enough like pixel signals for purchase. And then I optimized towards purchase, and then Facebook just like fired it off and was like, maybe these people will do it. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm so ballsy, like $200 a day. I'm going to make so much money. And like, no, just easy way to burn $1,000.
Yeah, totally.
So like, and it's a good lesson to learn. Should you light $1,000 on fire to learn a lesson every time? Absolutely not. But like now I definitely like making that mistake. I won't make that mistake again. Like I never do ever.
So what would you do instead? Do you have a store currently?
We stopped doing the deodorant because my buddy decided to move to Spain, which is fine for him. It's lovely for him. But like, I was like, well, if you're leaving, then I'm done. I have like a full-time job and a child and like all the things. So then I started a store that is just like a fun, it kind of like keeps me in the product. And it's just t-shirts that say different, jobs on them. And it's called shiptheorgchart.com, because you know how they always say like, don't ship the org chart.
Yeah.
This is like, you can get a shirt that just says design on it. And I generally like drink a couple drinks and then write like a terrible description for all of them. Like just everything that you would hate about like whatever that job is. And I write that.
That's awesome. I'm going to put the link in the description. You guys can check it out. Buy some of this. Is it all print on demand?
Yes, it is. It's print on demand.
That's dope. So what do you use for that? What was the process for setting that up?
Because I was building the landing page and then the ads for print on demand with Shopify. And I was like, okay, I need to like get into this so that I can build this in a flow that makes sense for somebody that knows nothing. Yeah, it's not that hard. I mean, you install, like, Shopify has an app ecosystem. So the way that I always kind of use it is like Shopify is like the iPhone, and it does like a bunch of dope things. And then there's an app store too that you can do other things with. So Printful is an app that's in there. There are a bunch of different print on demand companies. And you install it in your store. You set up a Printful account. You upload some designs. They go on t-shirts. There are like a million things that you can sell through print on demand. And then you're done. I mean, you build your like store and you make it look good and you do all the optimizations. And then if somebody orders from you, then Printful gets that. It goes directly through your store to Printful. They print the shirt. They ship it to them. It's another form of drop. I was talking to a guy today and saying like print on demand is essentially drop shipping, but there's like a little extra piece of like, hey, here's like this design. And like, I don't buy from shiptheorgchart.com because I haven't switched like due to COVID, they're slower. Some products are slower to ship and I haven't switched it. Because I like the shirts that I have. Like this is the one that I'm wearing right now is actually a Ship the Org.
Oh, that's dope. That's awesome.
Right. But
which is almost cool because you can create your own designs that you would want on a shirt, get it designed and then shipped right to you, which is really cool.
Is my like douchiest tech bro shirt. And it's ironic because it has like the rocket ship, the up and to the right chart, and then the flex emojis, just those three. And like, that is like the tech bro, like, yeah, this is the best thing ever. Rocket ship, upward chart.
Yeah,
flexing.
literally.
Like,
literally.
Yeah, like it's a relatively like most of the people that you're probably like seeing merch from are using some form of print on demand.
Yeah, actually, I had John Marzo on here. So we were chatting about it, like the whole e-commerce thing, because he does like Amazon FBA. And then we were talking about like the easiest way to get into this is like, you know, through drop shipping. And like you were just talking about, it's a really good way, you know, it's like your foot into the door into entrepreneurship, and Shopify makes it like 10 times easier to get it all up and running.
I don't need to be like a Shopify fanboy or anything. Like there are a million ways that you do this too, right? Like you do not need to use Shopify to like learn this. What ends up happening though is that eventually you'll be like, oh, but Shopify is far better at all the other things too, and I want that.
And like you talked about the ecosystem, like just it's like anything that Shopify doesn't do, other people have done, and you can connect it. Like super simple. Yeah.
The system is dope. But like the FBA, like I know John was getting into that stuff, and like FBA is a really interesting space, but it is like super technical too. I'm sure that, did you guys go deep on it?
We didn't go too deep. I think we'll do another one where we go deep on just Amazon FBA, because his girlfriend is the one that like she's called like the Amazon FBA queen online. So I'll have her on and she'll go deep. But I think he was a spreadsheet guy on all that. So it's incredibly technical.
Really, like from what I've heard, like just generic SEO in general pales in comparison to like how cutthroat like everything on Amazon is. Like it's just,
and then top that off is like when you do start doing well, then Amazon's like, fuck you, we're gonna do it, and then we're just gonna destroy you.
There was a time where a bunch of people were getting like, it was like, all right, initially it was like get a bunch of fake reviews, like you pile on fake reviews to your thing, it pops it up. Then Amazon was, I'm always used to just
Facebook, yeah.
And then Amazon was like, cool, we see you guys doing that. Now, if you get fake reviews on your product, we'll pull it. Well, then, okay, so I'm ranked 4th. The 3 people in front of me, I'll go spend $10 and get fake ads on or fake reviews on their products, and then boom, oh, guess what? I'm number 1 now. Like,
oh damn.
So then it was that. That's how they came about with like the like actual buyer or whatever. You know how like now you see the ads that are just like, this is from like a legitimate buyer. It gets like way more intense. I've like looked into it because my boss has like his wife has a Shopify store and he does Amazon stuff. And he was like, it's bananas, but it's like gambling. It's ads. Like all this stuff is kind of like gambling, right?
Right, because you're putting money to you don't know if it's going to work. And are you allowed to talk? Are you allowed to talk about how much you spend for Shopify? Ballpark? Are you allowed? If you're not, then if you're not sure, then it's probably a no. Yeah,
it's like I'm trying.
But let's just say you probably spend a fuck ton of money. I'm just going to say just a ridiculous amount of money every day. But
yeah, I mean, it is a healthy amount of money. It is a healthy amount of money that. Like, and you, over time, you get, like, that's with any role in paid. Like, and I don't spend the most on my team. I'll tell you that much. Like, our search guys are just crushing me.
Oh, yeah. Because I can only imagine, like, Google and everything. Oh, my God. Do you guys have to get some kind of, like, authorization for these kind of things? Or is it, like, a budget? They approve the budget, and they're like, you go for it. You do your thing.
Guidance than that. They're just not like, yo, go spend all this money however you want. Like there are target, and this is what I was kind of getting at with like the KPIs, right? It's like there are targets, and if you come in under, then they're not happy. And like, you know, we're trying to like the growth team at Shopify is like everybody is a rock star, and everybody's trying to crush whatever record is already there. And like that's, but
is that part of the culture? Is that literally part of the culture of everyone trying to?
We're not competing with each. Well, like me and our like search guy, I compete with him all the time, and he's gonna wipe the floor with me all day long, right? But I like to mess with him. I think like our performance marketing team is pretty competitive internally, but in like a joking way. But like you always want to beat what like there's no like I'm done now. Especially in like performance marketing, like I'm always, even if I get the cheapest cost and the most customers and all the things, that's not good enough. I just keep going because I'm like, I need to smash that. Like I need to beat every single month. I want to be better. As my numbers do better, or like when I'm looking at like 90-day survivability rates and like MRR but that's just like, what their GMV is, that tells me like, oh, okay, this is working. Like this flow is working. And it's about like getting people comfortable enough. I don't want anybody to sign up for a Shopify store that feels like they have to. You should like want to, right? You don't, don't do it because you're like, oh, well, I mean, and no, I'm not that good of a marketer. Like my creative is dope, but it's definitely not like, you're not watching it and being like, well, I guess I got to start a store now. Like I'm just trying to like nudge you in the right direction and like kind of help you along the way.
Yeah, I like that because it's not. I've seen ads. I get ads because I've been on Shopify. I started a store recently, but it's not pushy. It's not like I said, the secondary market of like these course creators and these business gurus.
We find the top blog posts that have to do with each like kind of market, and then we retarget people with blog posts that are educational and teach them how to do the thing. Like, because our content marketing team, like I was saying, like our growth team in general, every kind of department is dope. They're great. They're really well informed. They know what they're talking about. All their articles are well researched, and they're just like, it's just literally guides on how to like run a thing. And that's the hard part is with a platform like Shopify, because you can do so many things on it. There's no one like way. Right? Mm-hmm. Like there's no recipe that's just like, well, do this and then do that and then do this and then do that and then do this. Like you have to kind of make it up as you go along, and like you can find out the pieces that you need to get into, but like the kind of like the education is there.
Are there no structured courses? In the shop, there are tons. Yeah. But again, even those are different streams.
But that's, like what I'm getting at is like, you could install a drop shipping app and drop ship for a month, and maybe it doesn't work out, but then you install a print on demand app. Maybe then you like start like doing woodworking and selling some stuff. And then you have a hybrid model of like print on demand and drop shipping, and like you make your own stuff. And like, you don't know. Yeah. Like, what's the best way to take a product shot? I mean, there are a bunch of ways you could do it that are good. I can tell you if it's bad, like if it's, don't shoot it like this way and this way, and like, don't make it grainy. And like, there are a bunch of things.
Basics. Yeah.
Experimentation of like the variables around like, what are you selling? How are you selling it? What channels are you selling it on? How much are you selling it for? Like, what's your shipping time? Like all those things.
So know your variables, get those variables, get your ducks in a row. And then you can start. And I mean, like, you have to kind of look at it from a scientific lens. It seems like it's like, you're not going to be messing with like 5 variables at once. You're not going to know what the fuck made the change. You got to do one thing at a time.
This is like, I mean,
like, how do you guys juggle that when there's so many moving parts at Shopify?
Yeah, but that's, at least I have like that's the thing, right? Is like, I'm very like well supported, I guess, in that like there's a data team, and we have like a video team that makes dope like tutorial videos, and like then I just get to take that stuff and be like, oh, here's an awesome video with a really cute corgi where they make a print on demand store. Like, oh, okay, that smashes, right? But when you're in like the Shopify, like if you started a store, it doesn't matter if it's a Shopify store, you start selling stuff online, well, it's just you. Like there's no one, I mean, you could ask people, but nobody's gonna, like when I'm doing like geo tests and I need like, okay, I need 10 cities in the US that I can test in as a test, and I need 10 cities in the US as a control, and I'm gonna like run this test. I just hit up a data scientist, and then I'm like, yo, which 10 cities? And then they tell me, and then I run it, right? Versus when you're doing it by yourself, like all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, how do I like A/B test this? How do I A/B test this landing page versus this landing page, or this price versus this price? And then how do you get traffic to your actual store? And then how do you get people to buy? Like you get traffic all day, but maybe your product page looks terrible, or maybe it's like not optimized, and your speed isn't there, or like there are a bunch of things.
Yeah, a million different things. Like it's crazy to me that like, again, even within Shopify, just the sheer like amount of, like I said, the moving parts. Like, but it seems like you're all on the same page. You guys are all moving into like the same direction where it's like educate. Like, it seems like everyone, I'm sure the UX team is doing the same thing as the onboarding, as marketing. You guys are all like teach people how to use this thing as much as possible and whatever it is. that they're trying to do, and then just hope for the best, I guess, because you can't really handhold much further after that.
And we have people that kind of focus on every stage.
Yeah.
But that being said, like, don't think that like Shopify or any company has their shit together. Like, nobody does. There are fires everywhere. Like, it's just, it doesn't matter where you, like, everybody is not like walking into Shopify every day being like, we got this and we know exactly what we're doing and we're just crushing it out. Like, that's not the thing that's happening at all, right? Everybody's like, oh shit, did I fuck that up? Oh God, I'll put out that fire. Like, that's everywhere. It's just like, as long as whatever you ship works and looks good, like, and then after that, when you like pull the curtain back on anywhere, it's a shit show. It's a shit show. Nowhere has their shit together. Not a single company on the face of the planet. In Apple, guaranteed, people are losing their minds right now at Apple and at Facebook and like at every company. People are like, oh my God. And somebody is questioning, like, how is this the best fucking company to work at? For sure. There's not a single person that's just, not everybody at Apple is like, everything is great here and I love it. Like, somebody's fighting with somebody else and there's like a war going, like, there's craziness, right? But that's, again, and I'm not saying that like, I think that way just because Shopify is like that. It's not always like that, but there's stuff. There's a lot
of people. There's a lot of things going on. And that's the shit that goes behind the scenes. The stuff that we see, like when you see it, like, you know, there's a fuck up. You're like, oh shit, someone just got fired. Like right away.
Well, but like, and even then, at least they're very much into like, you know, fail. Like just don't be an asshole in general, but like fail. And failure is fine. Failure is like, hey, like, I'm happy to go out and be like, hey, I fucked up. This is the thing. You have to come back with like, this is what I learned from it.
Right.
If you didn't,
do you have any stories? Do you have any fuck up stories that you want to share? And any prominent ones?
God, like, I think, what can I tell? I definitely posted to the Shopify's Facebook page, as a restaurant, with a menu, and was like, we got this on special, when I like, and it sat there for like 8 hours before I caught it.
Were there comments?
No, it was just crazy. Like, I was like, what is happening? And like, you know, 40,000 people saw it. That's fine.
Right. Okay. So when you did that, was that because you were still managing like your clients, like freelance and agency work?
And I did it from my phone because I ended up like I don't freelance anymore because I was kind of like phoning it in with those clients. Like, so I was literally like on my phone on the streetcar uploading an image through Google or Facebook Page Manager, and definitely put it on the and I thought for sure, like, I was like, I am gonna get fired, and then nobody fired me.
Did anyone even notice? Did anyone notice?
It was brought up as in one of our meetings. Our data guy at the time brought up our worst performing post of the week and brought it up. Like, that is what, so, but my boss wasn't in that meeting at the time, so
that's key.
He didn't know. And I was just like, everybody shut up. Like,
did not happen.
Say anything.
That's good. So learning, what was the learning from that? Just like
things on the go.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Right. Like that. So
do you shut down your business after that?
Yeah. Like soon after that kind of thing. I mean, even when I was freelancing and had my own like company in air quotes, even though it was just me. And at one point, like another guy, but you can't take on more than you can you just have to, when I was freelancing, what I learned really quickly is it's easier to wait until somebody's willing to pay you what you're worth than it is to take on a bunch of clients that will like nickel and dime you. So like at one point I had like 12 clients and I was managing all their social channels. I was creating all of their content for every single channel and posting to them every single day. But that's 12 times like 3 or 4 different channels, and I was putting different content on different channels every day. So that's what does that work out to? Like 48 pieces of content a day. And like each of them were paying me like $500 a month. And you're like, cool. Like, and at the time I was like, I'm gonna make like $6,000 this month, but I died.
Not worth it.
And then like later on, I realized like, or I could just charge like one client like $5,000 a month and actually like do the work. And at the time, like I didn't know, because I have a history degree, not a business degree or anything. So I didn't know how to run a business or how to like do accounting or like figure out how to do my like pay structure. Like I was like, I don't know, what will you pay me? And people were like $500. And I was like, cool, sold. And like, I was like, I just made $500. And then it's like a month worth of work. And I didn't know how agencies worked or anything. Like I was just like, how do people charge for this? And like at one point I pitched SodaStream and they actually turned me down because it was too cheap. Like, and they thought, this guy probably doesn't know what he's doing, because I was asking for like, I think this was like 2013. And I asked for like $2,000 a month. I was like flat fee. I'll run your social, $2,000 a month. And that was like including their paid and like all the things. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then they were like, they looked at it and I think they were paying some agency like $20,000 a month. And I didn't even realize that was possible. Like it didn't even like occur to me like, oh, random agency could be charging like $20,000 a month. And they were,
I'm sure things are worse these days with all these social media marketing agencies. Like, oh man.
The reason I got in with a bunch of people is that I would find 5 things wrong with whatever their online presence was. And then I'd email them with the 5 things and the 5 fixes. Like I was like, here's how you fix this. Like Open Graph, always. Nobody knows what Open Graph is. Nobody optimizes it ever. And like, if you're listening and you're like, what the hell is Open Graph? It is if you're listening, you're definitely listening.
If you're still there, wake up.
If you're still there, like Open Graph is the image and the title and the description that is attached to a URL when you share it to a social platform. So sometimes you get like terrible ones that have no image and the title's all like jacked up and you're like, what the hell is this thing?
Yeah.
And like that is massive, especially like always sort your Open Graph, because if somebody shares your site anywhere, you want to put your best foot forward and build like the best possible brand awareness you have. And if it looks terrible, even your mom won't click on it. So like Open Graph is super important, and optimizing it is, you need to have the right size image. You need to have the right amount of text, because if your title is longer than 45 characters, then it cuts off your description. So your description isn't there, and you need to keep that in mind. And if it goes, you can go up to 90 characters, but if you go over, that gets cut off. And like, it's those like little tiny things that most people don't know, and they just kind of miss. Like everything you have to look at with the most critical eye. So it's the easiest to just go and look at somebody's social and just be like, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. And like, that gets you in the door. Like the best one on Twitter is when people have the emoji that points to the side, because that's where they're putting the URL, except then it embeds below and you don't see the URL. And now you just have a random emoji at the end that's like pointing sideways. You
got to point down. Always point down. Always.
Right? Unless you have 0 Open Graph and it's just going to be a URL. Or if you're adding like an image to it, but then you have a double CTA in that you have like your piece of media and your URL. Like, well, now what am I clicking the image, or am I clicking the link? Like that stuff can get you in the door. And a lot of people like don't pay that much attention to.
Yeah, I think with anything, just have a really critical eye on what you're doing. Like too many people just kind of do the bare minimum, and you could tell. When you go the extra mile and you really care, you got to put that little cherry on top,
There's nothing that I necessarily ship where I'm just like, yeah, meh. Like, you got to like look at it and be like, all right, how you have to put yourself in the shoes of somebody that has no idea what you are, who you are, what your brand is, any of those things. You have to look at it from like net new eyes, and there's a lot of pieces too that like the average person won't even see, but if you nail them.
And so would that be with like, I guess, organic or paid? You're just saying in general, you're putting your yourself out there in front of people that they will see it regardless. Yeah.
I think you and I have talked about this before, but like paid social should be like your last thing. Like unless you're a discovery brand or what, like you need to be discovered and that there's no search intent or anything like that. Like paid social should be the last thing you look to do, because there's no guarantee that you're going to get in front of people that care about anything. And like a lot of people will like run, I teach at Biz Start, which is like a Youth Employment Services of Ontario thing where they like teach entrepreneurship. It's actually a really dope program where you can go and get paid minimum wage to like learn entrepreneurship for 6 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
I'll put a link in the description. Anyone in Ontario who's interested, that's
there are
definitely
like
a great way to start.
Requirements around it, but like just look at it. I don't know. I guest lecture there and like teach them stuff. And there is always somebody that's just like running Instagram ads from their phone in Instagram. Like they're just boosting posts. And I'm always like, look, if you're running ads on Instagram from your phone, from Instagram, like just boosting your posts, please freaking stop. Like stop. You're wasting your money. You're throwing it away right now. Like, because you see people advertising.
So smart from Facebook, like from their point.
decreasing the barrier to entry, right? Like if you're boosting a post on social media, stop it. It's like, stop doing that, right? If you're clicking the boost post button and then putting money behind it, it's real dumb. Stop doing that. Like use Ads Manager and like learn it. And like, I'm not saying you need to go super deep and get crazy into like server to server offline pixel. Like you don't need to go crazy. You don't need to like build API connections and like that's the stuff that I'm dealing with on a daily basis. And that stuff's not fun either. But like the basics of like what a pixel is, where to put it, what kind of audience you can go after, your lookalike audiences, making sure that all of your like tech stack is in place. But like that's the thing. If you're just running ads on Instagram to reach people, you're never going to do anything because they're getting hit with like thousands of ads a day, right? There's no way. Like your ad has to be the craziest ad they've ever seen in their lives. And if you think that it is, you're fucking kidding yourself. Like there's no way. Like, and that's the problem, right? Is like everybody's like, everything that I do is the best. And like, no, it isn't. It needs to have sticking power or something, and it probably doesn't. Especially if you're like boosting it from the Instagram app.
Yeah. So first things first, like get your organic straight, which is like what would you say for people to get their organic straight? Like you're just posting to Instagram, you're posting Facebook. It's just all about building your community, building people who care. So how would you go about building that first? What are some tools and tips? Okay, so one, there's a talk that I give at Startup School that is the same thing that I give at BizStart, and there is a video of it, but it's from like 2016, so it's younger me. But the philosophy is still kind of the deck hasn't really actually changed that much because it's more philosophical. So you can go and like watch me rant for 2.5 hours if you really want to. But like the things that you start with are like what your strategy is. So it's like your goals, your target segments, and your content themes. Those are the 3 pieces that you need. You come up with like, what do I want to achieve with this like business in general? Who are my target segments? Like, who am I going after? Are they investors? Are they customers? Are they potential partners? And you write all of them. Don't just say like one, write all of them, because you have to keep all of them in mind when you're posting to social, because any of them could see any of those things at any point. How does that impact your overall goals and your brand in general? And then you build your content themes, and that's the stuff that you share on a regular basis to your social channels. Like if it's like thought leadership pieces or memes or whatever, and everybody can post spicy memes all day and get likes, but that doesn't actually like move your brand or your business forward, right? It's just like cool, unless you're doing a meme account, but then like, what do you gotta do some print on demand meme shirts. Like it's the only way.
And then like, so you build those 3 things out where you're like, all right. And the easiest way to come up with content themes is go and look at a competitor, and then you'll immediately hate everything that they're doing, but then figure out the stuff that they're doing that's working, and be like, well, I could do that better, because that's immediately what's going to happen in your mind. You're going to go like, well, I'm better than, look at this piece of crap. Okay, do a better version of it then. Like, but you don't need to like invent the wheel. And then eventually like test new content themes, right? And consistently test what time you're sharing it at, and like where you're getting engagement from, and like best posts or best times to post will change over time, because like seasons and stuff like that. Even when I was at the DMZ, we used to do that all. We had like student staff go and find like the 3 worst tweets from that entire month, and like what time we shared them at, what media was shared with them, what we wrote, like all the things. And then we would say, and then we would do like, all right, tweets that were dope. And we'd look at those 3. And then over time, you can start to see like, cool, which content theme is actually working here and which one isn't. And if you aren't creating your own content, because it's hard to create a ton of it, find a news article in your niche, and like tweet it out, or put pieces of it on Insta or whatever, and tag the journalist, because then you're building a relationship with the journalist that covers your beat. And when you write something like thoughtful or thought-provoking. Like, don't be an asshole, but like write something that goes along with it, and like via this journalist at this paper, and then share the link. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, look at this lovely person saying a lovely thing about me. What do they do? And then they click through, and your profile is beautiful, and you've sorted it out, and you have your link to your site, and you have a beautiful description. You have social content that is multiple content themes, so they don't see you as like a one trick pony with like just one content theme consistently shared. And then they're like, wow, this is great. And they click to your website, and it's dope, because your website is the most important. So unfuck your website first before you do any of this. Like, that's the number one. If your website is fucked, everything else that I just talked about is done. Like, don't even think about social media until your website experience is dope. Like, and it better be good. And like your copy's got to be on point. And I always say when I'm doing these talks, like, don't ask your mom to read your copy. Ask my mom, because she doesn't know you and she doesn't care. Right?
Oh, I love that.
That's how you tell. Give it to strangers. Don't ask your friends, like, hey, what do you think of this thing that I just like poured my heart and soul into? None of your, like, if you have good friends, then they're not going to, they're going to be like, it's great. I love it. I love everything about it. And then you're going to be like,
there's a few missed commas there.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And like, your website has to be on point, and it has to go 2 clicks to get, sorry, I'm kind of going backwards here, but we're going in a user flow version of like social media to your website, but it's 2 clicks to get anywhere. If it takes me more than 2 clicks to get anywhere, you're dead to me, because it's the internet and I need instant gratification. And if I want to go deep on about you, I better be able to read why this company exists and why you care about it. But at the same time, if I just want to like buy the thing, I better be able to get there too. So somebody experiences your website, and they like drink your Kool-Aid, and they either like give you the monies, or they're like, wow, I really like that brand. And you've just like raised your brand awareness. And now you have like a session on your site that you can either use to retarget against or whatever.
So that's the Facebook pixel you're talking about, where it's like, if they landed on a certain page, it got somewhere, that pixel will say they're on that page. And you can explain it better than I can. So explain the pixel side of like the tracking, because people are always kind of scared about that part too. People hate that, right? People hate it, but there's a reason for it.
Well, and this is all kind of changing right now too, with like iOS 14. And so it's kind of, we're going to see like what pixels do. And like, just Apple is like on the warpath to like kill the cookie.
Yeah.
But there are other ways, right? Like, so every social platform and every advertising platform has some version of a pixel that is on a site that fires when you land on it, and then fires when you do different things. And that's how you get followed around by ads, because you're retargeted, right? So if you're logged into Facebook or Instagram on your desktop or on your mobile phone or whatever, and then you're on a website and that pixel fires, it fires and says, oh, this person from Facebook just visited this site. And you can set that pixel up to fire events when you've been on the page for longer than 30 seconds. You can set it up to do scroll depth. You can set it up to have multiple page views. Like, a bunch of different things, right? So that you need that in place if you ever plan on spending on social. And that's Facebook isn't the only one with a pixel, right? Like they all have pixels. So if you want to spend on Pinterest, guess what? You need like the Pinterest tag. And like they all like try and name their stuff differently. Like Facebook has lookalike audiences and Pinterest has acolyte audiences. And you're like, come on.
What is TikTok's? They must have something like that.
I don't think that they do. I'm actually like I'm debating implementing TikTok Pixel like right now. So I haven't got to a stage where for a little while, like I was ready to do it a couple of months ago, and then it got like dicey, and I was like, ooh, what's going on? And it didn't feel right. So
yeah.
So I kind of
that's good. You got to go with your gut. You got to go with the intuition there, because it is rough. And I mean, the ads are okay on it. There are some ads that are like, people are doing a really good job at native ads on TikTok. Like you cannot tell half of them are ads.
A lot of people are like TikTokers are running ads, so they know. They're like, oh yeah, like I'm a TikTok person. And I think like TikTok as a social platform is the dopest thing that has existed in a really long time. Like that For You page that algorithm is amazing, where it just like
insane
learns and then it adapts to the stuff. Like, oh, it's so
even stuff without, I've seen stuff where it has no hashtags and no title or anything, and you're like, it's still relevant. How?
But I
know. My philosophy on it is I see TikTok as more of a media platform, like a YouTube, than a social platform for sure. But I mean, yeah, regardless, it's still a channel. So I guess all of these are more like channels. It's like the new TV, right? That's all it really is. But now instead of just like, oh, let's just run a TV ad, like now you can actually like measure this stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? Like when you run traditional TV, like even we've had some like brand campaigns that I've done some of the media buying for and stuff like that. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, so what do we get with TV? And they're like, well, like we generally hit like this many people. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, who are they? And they're like, we don't know. And you're like, do you know that many people actually saw it? And they're like, no, it's just like a guess. And you're like, what do you mean it's a guess? Like what? Because like the digital side of things, there isn't like room for discrepancy. Like, I'm like, how many impressions? How much reach? Like, what was the frequency of the reach? Like, how many people did we hit more than twice? Like, things like that you can just pull out.
Like, imagine bringing that into like the Mad Men era of the 60s. Like, they would be like, what are you talking about? TV, where you can actually see who is the person watching this. You can get their shoe size probably, and when they sneeze, and if they say that your brand while they're talking to someone.
Weird though, like, because that's the thing. Being on the other end of these ads, I'm not that deep, man. Like, there's no deep end. Like the people that are, you know, you're like, you say sunglasses out loud, and then all of a sudden you see sunglasses ads. No. Those people aren't bidding on like the people that say sunglasses.
Yeah.
Like that's not, they're not in your shit. And I mean, maybe Facebook is.
Well, you have a bunch of Google Homes, right? We're talking about this. Yeah. So you're obviously not, and people get afraid. They get like really anxious about all this stuff. But you as the marketing side of it, this probably maybe adds to it.
It would be a little bit hypocritical if I was like, yeah, like I'm implementing pixels and then like trying to like get a person to do a thing through ad tech. Also, though, I don't trust ad tech. Like, no, I don't. And at the end of the day, as long as you're like, maybe this is wrong, but it probably isn't. Is that like at the end of the day, it's just marketers that are going to use that data, right? Like I define like is this or something, like I don't know. That goes a little bit too far for me. Where I'm like, I'm not. I
mean,
sure.
They probably are. I mean, there's a reason why Zuckerberg has so many tax credits, but I mean,
and like maybe
they'll get that data anyway somehow.
Yeah, you know? I've just never been that big into like
conspiracy
privacy. Yeah, like into the like I need like no one should be able to hear me because I'm kind of like okay, but again, there's definitely an issue with like somebody saying like, well, like if you have nothing to hide, don't worry about it. Like that's not the thing either, right? But like, I don't know. Like if Google wants to listen to me, like Like, that's fine. Like, I'm not, nothing crazy is happening here. And like, for sure, if there was like other stuff that I was like up to, then yeah, I might be a little bit
You
more.
go hide it. If you're going to do shady stuff, like you're going to use a Tor browser, you're going to do all that stuff. So, obviously, if you have stuff to hide, don't just go use Google on Chrome with an open internet. Like, just don't be stupid. Like, if you have stuff to hide, but like
a Facebook account, or don't be logged in or whatever. I mean, do people still use Facebook for sure, but like, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my account and I'm logged in or whatever. And like, if somebody tags me, then maybe I see it, but like, I don't open that up anymore. Right. But I'm definitely being tracked. Like, if you don't want to be tracked, like, the easiest thing to do is like use an incognito window, or like use Safari, because Safari's getting rid of like cookies and all of that tracking. And then use a different email when you're like buying stuff. What's really interesting is like, because when I buy stuff, I use a different email than I use with my like social accounts. And a lot of brands they don't exclude purchasers. So then you end up seeing ads for that. The desk company that I bought my desk from, I still get ads from them being like, buy this desk. And I'm like, I already did.
Yeah, and this is a waste of money for them. But yeah, I was thinking about that.
Well, they're uploading emails to block out their customer list, except if your email doesn't match with your Facebook email, and Facebook doesn't have that secondary email on file. And you can opt out of like Facebook pixels. And there's a section in Facebook where you can actually see like how you've been tracked. You can go in and look at like what pixels fired on you and stuff like that. And there's like Pixel Helper that you can put on Chrome, and it'll show you every single event that is firing on every single website. Like, everybody has Google, it's like Google Tag Manager or something. Like, TikTok has a Pixel Helper. So you can go and see which pixel events from TikTok are firing on every page that you visit.
Which is probably helpful for you as the marketer to make sure that your pixels are firing. That's the reason why it exists, I assume, right? So you can test it.
And I like to do it for competitors.
Oh, like, interesting.
You go and look, and you're like, all right, where do they have it firing? Or like, you get served a competitor ad, and then you click on it, and then it shows like
go through the whole flow.
They're like UTMs, but like a lot of people don't think about like hiding. Like, my UTMs are all coded, so like, I have like short form codes so that I know what it is and the people on my team know what it is. But if you read it, you're like, what does that mean? Like,
otherwise, if it was in plain English, like, what would it say?
0 to 4% lookalike buyers under 30 in the last 30 days. Like, and you're just like, you just wrote that whole thing. Like, and it's so that they can track it back in like Google Analytics. They can see the UTMs that were like, if you don't know what UTMs are, at the end, when you click on a link and at the end of it, there's just a bunch of random like words and stuff. Like, it's like shopify.com/blog/online store or whatever. And then it's like question mark. And then it's like UTM _ and a bunch of things, right? That's how people are tracking like where you came from. So not only are you potentially tracking a click and an ad ID or whatever, you're still actually tracking it on your own site. So it's like a fallback because you don't want to just trust like Facebook numbers or Google numbers or whatever. You can like look at your own and be like, cool, this is what I see.
Cool. And using like Google Analytics for that, or whatever analytics platform you're using. Are there any last sort of like resources that you would like to share that you think is great for, I guess it'd be mainly for SaaS, because that's what you've been doing. So like SaaS marketers, or it could be, merchants. It could be
like the Shopify blog is dope. If you're like a merchant or you're like looking to learn something, especially like, all of our content marketers are great. So that's a solid resource. I mean, if you're, I don't know, the books that I like go to as like actual sources are less of the like tactical and technical pieces. Like understanding the tactics is the most important because you can't build strategy without understanding. But strategy based ones are like On Marketing by Scott Stratton that was like written way back. And Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk, who we didn't talk about, but
I know,
just
surprising.
Absolutely do not enjoy that dude. But like his book is pretty good. That book is pretty good.
It is good. He knows what he's talking
like
about.
He knows what he's talking about. I just can't take like the hustle porn. Everybody does it for 3 months.
Have you read that? Have you read the article "No More Hustle Porn" by, I think it was Nat Eliason? Yeah. Have you seen it? Yeah.
That's why, because it is like Gary V's the poster child for it. He's like, you always got to be working. No, we're at like the work-life balance stage now. Like the hustle life was earlier. Now we've all like evolved from that and been like, okay,
as a species,
this is a bad idea. And then the last one is like Hooked by Nir Eyal, which is actually about habit forming products. But if you read that from a marketing lens, it is smart. Like, I remember like going through it and being like, oh, this applies. Like, this applies to social, like to building community, and like, how do you keep people like coming back and engaging with your product? Well, that's essentially what you're trying to do on social. So I'd say like those 3 books are the best like philosophy books around like how to build a marketing strategy. And then from a tactics standpoint, you got to do it. And like, if you don't know how to do it, don't be writing strategy, because then you end up with like people just saying real dumb things, being like, well, we're going to do a TikTok, but we'll put it on YouTube. And you're like, no, none of that works.
Are there like blogs, people you follow, stuff like that you look at almost daily, weekly, stuff like that?
Yeah, Twitter for sure. Like Twitter, marketing Twitter is pretty dope. And like, I feel like I said dope far too many times.
It's all good.
But like marketing Twitter and D2C, when I'm looking at like performance stuff, I'm not following like a ton of SaaS people because we're not overly open. But D2C are like, they share their stuff all the time. They're like, hey, I ran this $100,000 test and like this happened. And I'm like, ooh, cool. And then you can just ask, and they're all like pretty down to earth. So you just ask, be like, did you think about doing it this way? And then they respond. And then you're like, whoa, okay. Because you're not like, there aren't a ton of like performance marketers that are just running around sharing stuff. So there are like 10, like Corey Dobbin, I would say, is like a Canadian D2C marketer that I met at Facebook last year. And then, and like David Herman, those 2 guys are pretty dope. Matt Kobach, who just he was at NYSE and now he works at Fast.
Oh, cool.
Like those are the 3 that come off the top of my head.
Cool. I'll link them all in the description. I'll go into your following. And is your Twitter open? So obviously follow Brent if you haven't already. And is your Twitter open? Can people DM you? Can they find your following and followers list? Do you have a list? Do you have a Twitter list of like these people?
Lists, but they're all private.
Okay. So we'll just go into your followings to those people.
Like I engage with those people. I think I called Corey Dobbin out the other day on one of my tweets. So like it should be there. I think I tagged both of them because I was messing around about D2C and I was like, I'm coming for you guys.
That's funny.
I mean, my Instagram is just pictures of my kid. So I'm not an influencer. On Twitter, I'm pretty spicy. And on LinkedIn, I've been starting to share my tweets to LinkedIn. So
I've been noticing that. So yeah.
You get angry when you put tweets on LinkedIn.
They're different. They're totally different mediums for sure. For me, Twitter's where it's at. That's where I've been most of the time. I find it's better than even LinkedIn for business stuff as well. I think a lot of people are getting sales and partners through Twitter. So I think it's the way to go for sure.
Tweets and put them on LinkedIn. Say spicy stuff on LinkedIn, man. Like it's crazy. The amount of people that are like, I think I've shared like 5 or 6 posts in the last like 3 months. And the amount of like people that are viewing my profile and you hit thousands of people. I think I have like 1,000 connections on LinkedIn because I don't connect with people that I don't actually know. And like, I'm hitting like 20,000 people with just a rando post because their algorithm is so slow to update. So it'll show it. I'm still getting likes on a thing that I posted like a week ago.
I've noticed that. Yeah, it's super weird.
So like, okay, cool. Like say something spicy.
So LinkedIn might be a good platform to really start looking into.
thought leadership innovation thing, right? Like
that was the spicy tweet.
Yeah,
there
like,
you go.
Oh, yeah. When my like spicy tweet was like, anybody that has thought leader in their bio, thought leader or expert in their LinkedIn bio is either lying or an asshole or something along those lines. And a bunch of people on LinkedIn that have thought leader in their bio took offense. One guy particularly just went off. Like, he wrote like 7 comments and I don't even know him. It just like showed up in his feed and he was like, this guy is attacking me or whatever. And
oh my God,
told me that I was contributing 0 to the world. And I was like, bro, it is LinkedIn. You need to chill out. Like, LinkedIn is the angriest platform if you like hit a nerve, which is amazing. I loved it.
That's good.
Oh, it's so good. I'm trying to think of like more spicy LinkedIn tweets that I can like just,
then funnel it over there.
Funnel it over. I like wait until I have some decent engagement on Twitter, and then I'm like, yeah, this is the one.
That's awesome. That's the one. All right. So Brent, I guess Twitter is the place to find you. So go follow Brent on Twitter. Brent, this is awesome. We'll definitely go deeper in part 2 because there's a lot I still wanted to ask you. It's been 2 hours, but we had to do the first hour of like, personality, As
I drank slowly throughout the whole thing, then it got better, right? Let's hope.
And that's, everyone thinks I'm drinking beer. You can't see in the video, but I have a swell bottle that everyone thinks is a beer bottle. So you know what? Next time we do this, I'm going to have a few, and then I think you'll just get like super spice.
I was kind of afraid. I was like, how much do I drink for this? But I think that I've done this is only 2. I'm only on beer number 2.
No, that's the perfect amount.
That's the perfect amount.
Yeah, that's exactly it. All right. Well, Brent, this was awesome, man. Thanks so much for coming on Mind Meld, and let's call it a night.